Welcome everyone, join us today for a journey through the life and legacy of Noel Redding, original bassist and quiet force behind one of rock's loudest revolutions, the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So let's dive in. Noel David Redding, born the 25th of December 1945, in Folkestone, Kent, England. Born to Horace and Margaret Redding, Noel was raised in the seaside town of Seabrook, where his mother ran a guest house. He grew up alongside his Swedish grandmother and siblings, Anthony and Vicky. He attended St. Leonard's Primary School in Hythe, and later the Harvey Grammar School in Folkestone. Noel's musical journey began at the age of 9 when he took up the violin in primary school, but his interest soon shifted to the banjo. By 12, he had added the mandolin to his repertoire and stuck with these string instruments for a couple of years. At 14, he bought a second-hand acoustic guitar for £12 and dove into skiffle, a British take on jug band music. A year later, he upgraded to his first electric guitar, a black and white model with a single pickup and a Dallas amplifier. He soon formed a school band that played instrumental covers of songs by The Shadows, The Ventures, Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, and Shane Fenton and the Fentons, later known as Alvin Stardust. Although he occasionally sang numbers like Tom Dooley, Noel was more drawn to instrumental music in those early days. His musical inspirations included Buddy Holly, Cliff Richard, the Everly Brothers, and Eddie Cochran. At 15, Noel was juggling art college by day and music gigs by night. Although art school held his interest for a time, he left after 18 months to pursue music full-time. By his late teens, Noel was performing lead guitar and gigging with several local bands including The Strangers, The Lonely Ones, and The Loving Kind. He worked the club circuits in Germany and Scotland, spending 2 years playing bars in Hamburg with groups like Neil Landon and the Burnett's. He recorded 3 singles with The Loving Kind, Accidental Love, Love the Things You Do, and Ain't That Peculiar, on Pye Records under the management of Gordon Mills, who also managed Tom Jones and Engelbert Humperdinck. But the band's momentum fizzled. Often after driving hundreds of miles, they'd arrive only to discover they were double booked. Returning to England in September 1966, Noel auditioned as a guitarist for The Animals. Instead, he was pointed toward a new American artist looking for a bass player, Jimi Hendrix. Impressed by Noel's knowledge of blues progressions, and also his hairstyle, producer and manager Chas Chandler asked if he'd consider switching to bass for Hendrix's new band. Noel agreed, trading his Telecaster for a Fender Jazz bass. The lineup was completed with the addition of drummer Mitch Mitchell, forming the legendary power trio known as the Jimi Hendrix Experience. In mid-November, the band made a splash at London's Bag O'Neill's nightclub. The audience that night read like a who's who of rock royalty, with Eric Clapton, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Jeff Beck, Pete Townsend, Brian Jones, Mick Jagger, and Kevin Ayers, many of whom were left in stunned silence by the explosive performance. The band quickly recorded 2 breakout hits, Hey Joe and Purple Haze. After appearances on popular UK TV shows like Ready Steady Go and Top of the Pops, Hey Joe entered the charts on December 29 and climbed to number 6. Their momentum continued in March 1967 with Purple Haze, which peaked at number 3. Following their chart success, the group began work on their debut album Are You Experienced?, a groundbreaking mix of blues, psychedelia, and rock. Released on May 12, 1967, the album stayed on the UK charts for 33 weeks, reaching number 2. That same year, thanks to Paul McCartney's recommendation, the band performed at the Monterey Pop Festival. The now legendary set catapulted them into stardom and led to a series of immediate concert bookings. The band's second album, Axis, Bold as Love, was released in the UK on December 1, 1967, peaking at number 5 and remaining on the charts for 16 weeks. In the US, it reached number 3 by February 1968. Noel also contributed creatively, writing and singing the track, She's So Fine. Their third and final studio album, Electric Ladyland, was soon to follow. Recording for Electric Ladyland began on December 20, 1967, at Olympic Studios in London but soon shifted to the newly opened Record Plant Studios in New York. As sessions dragged on, producer Chas Chandler grew frustrated with Hendrix's obsessive perfectionism and the increasingly chaotic atmosphere, with crowds of friends and hangers-on, turning recording sessions into parties. Eventually, Chandler walked away from the project. Around the same time, Noel had formed his own band, Fat Mattress, and was finding it harder to balance both groups. Hendrix often filled in on bass, though Noel did contribute the song, Little Miss Strange, which he wrote and sang. Known for his trebly tone, use of a pick, and later fuzz effects, through overdriven Sun amps, Noel's distinctive style still featured on several tracks. Electric Ladyland was released on October 25, 1968, and became the band's only #1 album in the US, spending 2 weeks at the top. It also reached number 6 in the UK and remained on the charts for 12 weeks. By early 1969, however, tensions within the Experience were growing. Noel had grown frustrated with Hendrix's erratic schedule and tight creative control. Their relationship deteriorated further during the European tour that January. The band's final performance together took place on June 29, 1969, at the Denver Pop Festival. The event ended chaotically with police tear gas, and the trio fleeing in a truck nearly crushed by fans. Just before the show, Noel was blindsided by a journalist who informed him Hendrix had already announced his replacement, Billy Cox. The next day, Noel officially quit and returned to London, stating he wanted to pursue a solo career and citing Hendrix's unilateral decisions as a key reason for leaving. Noel then turned his full attention to Fat Mattress. The lineup included Jim Leviton on bass and keyboards, Eric Dillon on drums, and Neil Landon on vocals. Noel handled guitar and vocals, with the band's signature sound built around rich vocal harmonies between Redding, Landon, and Leviton. Initially touring as the opening act for the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Noel performed double duty each night, playing in both bands. Fat Mattress signed with Polydor and released their self-titled debut album in 1969. While the record had modest success, the single, Magic Forest, became a hit in the Netherlands. A planned 30-date US tour was abruptly cancelled after just 5 shows. During the recording of Fat Mattress 2, tensions between Noel and Leviton led to a falling out, and Noel left the band shortly after. Noel soon moved on to new musical ventures. While living in Los Angeles, he formed the psychedelic hard rock trio Road, alongside guitarist Rod Richards and drummer Les Sampson, with Noel returning to bass duties. Each member took turns on lead vocals, and the group released a self-titled album in 1972 before quietly disbanding. During this time, Noel and Sampson also contributed to the jam sessions that became part of Randy California's 1972 album Capped Copter and the Fabulous Twirly Birds. After Road ended, Noel returned to Ireland and launched the Noel Redding Band, reuniting with Sampson and bringing in musicians such as Eric Bell and Dave Clark. Following their second album in 1976, Sampson departed and was replaced by former Roy Wood drummer Dave Donovan. This version of the band toured the Netherlands before splitting in late 1978. As with many of Noel's post-Hendrix projects, the band had a relatively short run, producing 2 albums in 1975, Clonakilty Cowboys, and Blowin' in 1976. Material recorded for a third, never-released album was eventually issued under the title The Missing Album by Mouse Records. As Hendrix's back catalogue continued to generate massive revenue, Noel grew increasingly resentful. In the mid-1970s, he had accepted a one-off payment of $100,000 after being assured there would be no further releases, a decision he would later regret, especially with the rise of CDs and DVDs. By 1980, financial pressures forced him to sell his original bass guitar for $16,000. In 1990, both Noel and drummer Mitch Mitchell published memoirs detailing their time with Hendrix. In his book, Are You Experienced?, Noel claimed the Hendrix estate still owed him money, writing that Jimmy's death was the most lucrative act of his sad career. Despite legal and financial frustrations, there were moments of recognition. In 1992, Noel, Mitchell, and Hendrix were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, an honor Noel described, along with performing at Monterey, as one of the greatest highlights of his life. In 1997, Fender released the Noel Redding Signature Jazz Bass, a limited run of 1,000 units. Noel praised the model, saying it matched his original instrument he had sold perfectly. He later toured the US in 1998 with Keith Dion's band 305 AM, with recordings from these tours released under the titles West Cork Tuning and Stone Free in the UK and Europe. Noel also appeared on the 1970 album Lord Sutch and Heavy Friends, and contributed to projects such as Yardbirds Experience and Family Tree, Birds of a Feather, released in 2006. For the last 2 decades of his life, Noel regularly performed Friday nights at DeBarra's Pub in Clonakilty, often joined by longtime friends like Status Quo's John Coughlin and Thin Lizzy's Eric Bell. In February 2003, just months before his passing, Noel threatened legal action against ex Hendrix, seeking up to $5 million in lost earnings. The estate dismissed his claim. On a personal level, Noel was married twice. His first marriage was to Danish-born Suzanne Fowsby, on November 6, 1969, in Kent, England, with bandmate Mitch Mitchell attending the ceremony. The couple had one son, Nicholas Noel Redding, before divorcing in 1971. From 1973 to 1990, Noel was in a long-term relationship with Carol Appleby. Their 17-year partnership ended tragically when Carol died from brain injuries sustained in a car accident, just 2 days after helping Noel complete his autobiography. His final relationship was with American-born Deborah McNaughton. After Noel's death, she returned to the US, where she passed away from breast cancer 9 months later. Sadly, on the 11th of May 2003, Noel Redding was found deceased in his home in Clonakilty Island, 3 weeks after the death of his mother. A post-mortem concluded that he had passed from a shock hemorrhage due to esophageal varices in reaction to cirrhosis of the liver. He was 57 years old. He was survived by brother Anthony, sister Vicky, and son, Nicholas Noel Redding, by his former wife, Suzanne. And there you have it. Though he is no longer with us, Noel Redding's contribution to the sound and legacy of the experience was undeniable. His legacy lives on in every thunderous bass line and every memory of the wild, electric spirit of the 60s rock revolution. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Take care and bye for now.